Just do that once more.
Okay. My name's Gerry Webb and I'm General Director of Commercial Space Technologies.
Could you just give a bit of some background as to how you got into the space?
Yeah, well, I was always interested in space ever since I was born in 41. A lot of early experiences. One of my earliest memories is debris from a V2 and things like this, little children's books and comics began to feature space quite prominently. 1950, I think it was 50, my father took me to see Destination Moon. I was already really sold on space idea, therefore by that time. Eagle came out in April 1950. I remember cycling down the road to pick up the first copy of that. And like nearly all of my sort of colleagues in the British Interplanetary Society, my generation, of my cohort, we're all devout down there fans and followed Eagle and all the other stuff in Eagle as well, cutaway drawings, everything. So it was quite natural to read science fiction magazines, and in the science fiction magazines were adverts for other things like the British Interplanetary Society. So in a copy of New Worlds, I think it was, in the 50s, I saw in the mid-50s, and I don't think it was in Eagle, but certainly in in the New Worlds science fiction magazine. And then, of course, when Sputnik 1 was launched, I thought I was almost too late. I actually wrote off and joined the society that day as soon as I heard about it. And that was late, of course, 57. So by early 58, I went to my first meeting and had my membership confirmed and everything. And it was an absolute thrill for a kid like me who was still a teenager. Patrick Moore was the first man to shake my hands. He was very prominent in the society, but greats like Ken Gatlin, Thompson. Arthur Clarke was actually there even at one of the meetings. The meetings at that time took place in Caxton Hall. So I followed on and I wanted to go into space as, right from the start. And my mother, who actually worked in the Ministry of Agriculture, I think at the time, saw an advert for the radio research station. So I joined that. And the next month after I joined in 1960, when I left school, it became Radio and Space Research Station, and it was actually, they were recruiting people to do rocket and satellite experiments and build, satellites for space in space. So space research is what it says. Became ultimately the Appleton Laboratory and then amalgamated with Rutherford, but that's later. So in those early days, they sent me away to train. So I went to university. I went to London University, actually University College finally, under Professor Groves, another prominent member of the society actually, who did my postgraduate stuff with an MPhil finally in space science, although primary degree was in physics. And then through the society meetings I met other people of my age, apparently doing much more exciting things in a way, at places like British Aerospace and things like this. And there was a whole group, and suddenly who I knew, and two of the prominent guys, Tony Martin and Alan Bond, were very important in my life and introduced me to another group of friends like John Puffett, Bob Parkinson, for example, all of which have been prominent members of the society since. And this happened with the announcement of the Daedalus study, and I eagerly joined that and found myself in a kind of a discussion group of people where it wasn't just interstellar flight. The whole purpose of Project Daedalus, anybody who is interested can just look it up. It's a prominent British Interplanetary Society project. But what it did for me was actually show me that you could actually start thinking almost about anything, being possible physically and everything. The whole purpose of the subject was rather analogous to the BIS moonship in the late 30s, which there were so many people who say you couldn't do space flight at all. And in the same way, there were prominent people who used to say you couldn't do interstellar flight at all. And so Daedalus was formed to show that it was physically possible. I mean, it didn't address the financial or the other, problems of it, but it just wanted to show that it was physically possible. That inspired me so much that I more or less kept up with a group who went off and looked at, did many other different things inside the society. But, and in fact, Alan Bond himself, the founder of Reaction Engines, was telling me how good Russian rocket engines were. He is the preeminent rocket engine designer in the country. And I was so interested in this that I actually went up and we were at an IAC conference. I'm being interviewed at an IAC conference, another important influence on contacts and life, because at an IAC conference, in the early 80s, we heard some Russians talking about possible plans for space industrialization, and most things were kept quite were not published from the Soviet Union at that time. It was a communist state, and so just out of sheer interest, we kind of tried to analyze what information there was available and realized that this could be true, because there were hints about things like the Energia launcher. This created me such enthusiasm in me that I actually approached Dave Fern, another prominent member of the society and the great iron engine designer, and he put me in touch with the people. And what ultimately happened is we did a study for the UK government, and I made a presentation to John Fairclough, Margaret Thatcher's science advisor at that time, and that got me. And because I was so enthusiastic about that, I started talking to Russians at places like the IAC, and under Gorbachev, they were just allowed out to talk, particularly academics. And in '87, I got an invitation to the Soviet Union. What had happened previously is that in '83, '84, while I was at Rutherford, having transferred from Appleton Laboratory, they wanted to put me onto the nuclear program, and I'm a dedicated space cadet. And because the space side was being pushed down, actually, and I was part of the Skylark procurement team for universities, but they shut that section down, and they wanted to redeploy me because there were a lot of new nuclear. There was a neutron spallation source was being constructed there, still operating, I think, and It looked to me rather like being part of the pyramid construction and not being the guy with the whip, and I left completely naively and formed a company hoping to do consultancy into such sectors as the insurance sector in London, which was burgeoning at that time, just beginning to insure, on a big scale, communication satellite launches. And Alan Bond and myself started CST, but he clearly was already working on the HOTOL, what was HOTOL and then eventually became Skylon. So I had to leave, although we've remained close associates and friends. So I took commercial space technologies into Russia in '87 just by for enthusiasm over the space industrialization program, which was a massive, unrealistic financially, of course, given the state of the country's finances. But nevertheless, we got a contract with a Finnish company to work with Globcosmos, and that really cemented some of our business there. So while we continued with consultancy in the UK, the company began to actually, the plan was that we marketed what was then the Soviet space program, and with that money, the Finnish company was going to build Globcosmos, a big headquarters in Moscow, was the actual basis of this, and that's what got us started. But clearly, the Soviet Union wasn't going to last much longer, as we know now, and in fact collapsed in '91, and that more or less stopped what we could do there. But at the same time, the contacts and people I made meant that you could employ people there after communism collapsed. So we then formed a Moscow office and approached SSTL, who we'd known through contacts, once again generated by the society. Several members of SSTL are also prominent members of the society. And we began brokering launches on Russian launches for SSTL, beginning with Fasad Alpha in '95, I think. So we actually, to do that, we actually had to begin, if you look back, around about '93, and I'd only got the office together in '92. But working in Russia is quite interesting because the team I formed then are still with me now. In fact, at this conference is Nina, head of our Russian office, and then we are kind of expanding. We expanded from there and now do trading and a lot of things. Association with Russian space technology still provides a lot of our advice. For example, in the not advice, information and work, I should say, because we advise the insurance community on Russian failures and risks, because we have experts on the ground who can do probably assessments which can't be done by people based in the West. But we're also coming back out with general work, and very nicely and just in time, the British Space Agency, now formed, is suddenly putting new life into work inside Britain, and there's a lot of work going on. We've been part of several studies for the UK government. We're looking into possibilities of launches from Britain and possibly a British spaceport of some sort. Our company is now looking at certain aspects of space tourism as well as all the other work it does. So it's a viable and very good future. I'm now a council member of the society, which is one of my great ambitions, and able to see and contribute to its work. And the society still provides a large part of my life, my social life, and contacts with friends, and something to do to keep me off the streets. That's more or less, if you wanted how CST was formed. I don't know whether it's said enough, but
that's fantastic. It's all background stuff.
It's how the society interleave with that, you know.
Can we talk a little bit about?
You're editing
China?
out these bits, yeah.
Can we talk a bit about China? What work you've done with the Chinese and what?
Actually, unfortunately, we don't do a lot with China. We're very interested in the Chinese program. I can say this on camera if you like. But yes. Okay. But I'm not going to say very much about China because we don't actually do any direct business with China.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But talking about the potential.
Oh yes. Okay, well, we're here at the IAC in China for several reasons. I mean, we would go to any IAC wherever it was because we meet and continue to, it's a short way of meeting a lot of our contacts in one space at one time. Our interests in China are not particularly direct at the moment. We've done studies on the Chinese space program, actually using Russian experts who in the old days supplied a lot of the early technologies, and if you look at a close examination you can see a lot of the Chinese manned program has some basis in the early Soviet type vehicles and methods. We pay close attention to what they do because it's rather like running a corner shop and ignoring Sainsbury's down the road, isn't it? You know, it's a bigger outfit. They're determined. They have a lot of ambition to have an independent manned program, and I wish them luck. I'd like to see, well, I think there probably is an unspoken space race starting again, where it's going to be see who's going to be the first to the moon and Mars, let's hope. And a lot of this will be kind of amplified by the kind of things going on in the West in space tourism and that. So directly with China, we don't do a lot of business. It's not that easy, although we would, if there was a good business case for us, broker Chinese launches as well. That's not out of the question. But at the moment, we're not really looking at that seriously. Our work is mainly United States, Russia, Europe, that kind of axis. Similarly, our attitude to the Indian program is very similar. You don't ignore it. You don't ignore big operators like that, and look for a collaboration. And I'm sure in the future it will happen when it's ready. That's about the best I can say.
No, that's absolutely fine. Yeah. Is there anything else you can think of that you'd like to?
Well, it depends what the motive of this is.
Well, I mean, what I'd like to do is put together a little package to put on the BIS website.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, the first bit is obviously our archive thing, because we're trying to sort of get together an archive of memoirs, if you like, of BIS members. I'll just stop for a second. Just run.
Yeah. So, in the future, clearly, I will continue to remain a member. I've been a member, well, since ¡57 when I joined. Actually, '58 my membership I think was acknowledged. So, but much more than 50 years. And we'll continue to enjoy that. With regard to the company and everything, the company is doing quite well. Its business is expanding on all the steady fronts. In the future, well, what we do at the moment, apart from the consultancy, which now is becoming more and more possible inside the UK, we continue to do launcher broking in Russia. We also do trading of space components, and as I say, specialised little things like our insurance work is steady all the time because we're known in that sector. But for the future, we are already looking at possibilities of what we can do in the field of space tourism. My son, who I'm very pleased wants to come into the business. Not unusual in the space business, actually, to have dynasties. They particularly happen in Russia. I mean, most of the people we deal are sons of people who are sons and daughters of people who were dealing with before, and CST is no exception to that in the thing. So but he is not going to take us. He's taking us in a different direction. He's going to take us in the field of what I would call biomedical subjects and space tourism, particularly something we've never touched up to now because all the satellites we've brokered. We've brokered actually 30 satellites on 3 different launch ranges using 5 different types of rocket. But all these satellites are in the 100, 200 kilogram range. But my son is developing us into the field of CubeSats in collaboration with other companies in Europe. So we're becoming perhaps more collaborational, and in the future we'll branch out into fields. I mean, my ambition ultimately in 10 years' time is that the company would buy and operate Skylons. That would be something I would be very happy to do if the opportunity could present itself.
Great way to finish that.
That's
fantastic. Yeah.
That's about